Today.
That was the business news with Matthew Warren. Thank you very much, Matthew. And let's turn now to the press review. Florence Villemino has been reading the international press. Hi, Florence. Hi again. Syria continues to be grabbing headlines today. Normal, given all the developments yesterday. All eyes are on the U.S.
That's right. What is the U.S. going to do? That's the key question today. Let's take a look at the New York Times that's looking at the latest developments. Obama has tentatively embraced a Russian proposal. So basically, the U.S. could pause planned military strikes if Syria gives over control of its chemical weapons to some sort of international body. Now, the Huffington Post, in its French version, wonders, could this be an emergency exit? And you see all the key players there, Obama, Bashar al-Assad, and Vladimir Putin. Well, that's what everyone's wondering.
And Slate takes a closer look behind the scenes at just how this proposal came about. It was a surprising turn of events.
Absolutely. It's a very interesting article in Slate that wonders, actually, could it be U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry who accidentally put this viable solution on the table? Now, if you look at the timing, as Slate does, well, this could very well be the case. Now, this idea originally came up during a press conference he gave yesterday with the British Foreign Secretary William Hague, and he was asked at one point if there was anything Assad could do to avert an American-led attack, and he said, to quote him, sure, he could turn over every bit of his weapons to the international community within the next week without delay. So that's what Slate is taking a closer look at. Now, the State Department quickly walked back on these comments, said this was more of a rhetorical argument than an actual proposal, but later in the day...
It didn't sound like a realistic plan when he said it.
Absolutely. He seemed to not even believe it himself, but later in the day, Russia caught everyone off guard by saying that, well, this ad-libbed solution was actually workable.
There's another newspaper you've been reading, very interesting, the London-based pan-Arab newspaper Sharq al-Awsat, which says that the solution to the Syrian crisis could be found elsewhere.
That's right. This is a piece by Aylin Kokamen. She's a journalist based in Istanbul, and she says the Islamic world could resolve the Syrian crisis. And she points out that last week, Turkey received an interesting proposal from Iran's ambassador in Ankara who said, let's stop the Westerners when it comes to Syria and do something ourselves. Basically, we Muslims must repair the damage in the Islamic world, not the West. And she says,
is there a specific plan? Or?
Well, that's the thing. This article is more dreamy than actually concrete, and she says that it would have to be some sort of an alliance between Iran and Turkey. She doesn't really go into more detail about what that would be, but she says this would be the only way that an intervention, a bloodless intervention, could bring peace to the
Saying Muslim countries should be the engine for peace in Syria. And the Pope is also getting some attention in the international press for his tendency to pick up the phone and call the faithful.
That's right. This is in the International Herald Tribune today. For instance, he called a pregnant woman in Italy whose married boyfriend had tried to get her to get an abortion. He also called a woman in Argentina who'd been raped by a police officer. So all sorts of faithful. This has earned him the nickname of the cold call Pope. So the faithful are thrilled about this, but...
So he just says, hi, it's Francis?
Well, they write him letters and he calls them and speaks to them for sometimes up to 10 minutes. But this is proving to be some sort of, a headache for the Vatican because of prank calls. There have been several calls made to other people who claim to be the Pope when it wasn't the case. For instance, last week there were reports that he'd actually called Bashar al-Assad. Also, there were reports that he'd called a gay man here in France, saying that it was okay to be gay. The Vatican was quick to say that those were prank calls. But The Guardian looks at the fact that he's calling people and picking up the phone and says that this is really marks quite a difference from his predecessor. At 6 months in, he's really completely shaken up the Catholic Church, and The Guardian says this is really a welcome change of brand in the Catholic Church.
And finally, a Brazilian pop star is getting attention in the international press.
That's right. This is a 20-year-old Brazilian funk artist named Anitta. Now, she's a superstar in Brazil, but she's just signed a big contract with Warner Music, and it seems that she could very well become an international superstar, but she's been getting a lot of
the Brazilian
attention.
Version of Shakira.
That's right, the Brazilian Shakira. That's what a lot of people are calling her, but she's been in the press a lot because of photos that people have been looking at on a blog called Blogueiras Negras, where it shows a before and after. You see a before and after a shot of her ever since she signed this big contract. And people say, well, is this the Michael Jackson effect because her skin looks a whole lot lighter? Or could this just be bad Photoshop, or is this some sort of an attempt to sell more CDs? Well, according to Salon, it's just proof that pop music's beauty standard is depressingly narrow and white.
All right, Florence Villemino, that's all we have time for. Florence Villemino with the International Press Review. And we're back in just a moment with more headlines from around the world. The breaking news this half hour: the court in New Delhi has just handed down its verdict in the long-awaited trial of the 4 men suspected of beating and raping a student last December. Well, they have now been found guilty of murder and rape.